Welcome, and thank you for listening. For those of you familiar with my book, Life and Death, you'll have context for the topic I discuss today. As with all my work and conversations I have regularly with people, I don't claim to be the expert or the authority on any of the things I discuss. I simply present my thoughts and opinions based on my own life experiences, and thus I am open to and welcome the possibility of having my thoughts challenged and refuted, because that's the only way to make progress and evolve. As I discuss in my book, the trauma of complex first-hand encounters with death left me entrenched in a dark fog of uncertainty and depression, with no light on the horizon for the better part of 8 years. I was forced to stare death in the face repeatedly and try to reconcile the implausible fact of my survival, while simultaneously struggling with crippling PTSD and trying to keep from drowning in a sea of unanswerable existential questions. What is the meaning of life? Are heaven and hell real? And can that be proven? Does life even matter? Among many things, this existential crisis taught me two valuable truths. The first is the power of knowledge: academic, experiential, conversational, and self-knowledge. The second, which I'll be discussing today, concerns the importance and power of self-exploration, canceling out all external noise and facing the one person you can never truly hide from: yourself. Ever since my most recent encounter with death, meditation has become a big part of my life. It has allowed me to look past the surface level attributes we identify ourselves by: our intelligence, our passions, our personality, etc., and get in touch with what makes me, me. Now, I'm not suggesting that everyone has to do this or needs to do this in order to find peace or be happy. I am simply highlighting the value that can be gained through critical self-examination. This is by no means an easy process. Examining yourself under a microscope and accepting every part of you, the good and the bad, is one of the hardest things to do. And the results will differ from person to person, because not everyone is the same. But the journey and the process will give you a deeper understanding of what makes you tick, why we behave the way we behave. And that knowledge in itself is power, depending on how you decide to use it. For me, this knowledge has allowed me to reach this stage in my life where I'm at peace with every part of me and at peace with my circumstances in life, regardless of what comes my way. Meditation is a broad term. There's a variety of different styles and techniques, all of which may work for some and may not work for others. But the idea behind it all is to cancel out all external noise and distractions, to get in touch with the real you, whether that's physically or mentally or spiritually. A ritual I started several years ago involves me walking down to the lake I drowned in on the anniversary of my drowning event. I walk out onto the rocks in the water, take a seat, and let my mind drift with the waves. The goal of these meditation cycles is to reflect on the previous year and try to gain a little insight and direction for the coming year. It sounds easy enough in practice, but when you truly open your mind and turn off that little voice in your head, your mind will drift to places you never knew and make connections you never thought possible. For me, these meditation cycles have been enlightening experiences. I have cried, I have laughed, I have felt crippling sadness, and reached profound realizations about myself and about the universe itself. in order to quiet that little voice in my head, I always let the calm and chaos of nature and the moment be my guide in this journey. As I stated earlier, the last several years I have felt as though I was drowning in a sea of mental despair because of the circumstances of my experience. Every time I surfaced up for air, some question, some memory, some repressed emotion would always pull me back down. But this past year was slightly different. Having completed and published my book, my annual meditation brought forth new empowering realizations. For an hour, I sat in the water waiting for my subconscious to take me to some new repressed memory. For that hour, all that I saw and heard was the crashing of heavy waves. Just then, as I stared out to where the horizon met the water, the waves slowed, the water became still, and I underwent something I can only describe as an out-of-body experience. My soul, or more accurately, a physical representation of me, left my body and slowly started walking across the now slow-moving water. When he got to the center of the lake, he looked down to see another version of me in the water drowning, struggling to surface. Then this first version of me reached his hand down and pulled the second me out of the water, at which point the two fused and became one being, and then were quickly pulled back into my real physical body. Then just as I looked up, the dark clouds slowly began to disperse, and the sun started to shine through. There are a few different ways to examine this experience, but I took it as signifying the closing of one chapter and the beginning of another. For most of my life up to that point, I had been crippled by uncertainty, drowning in confusion and trauma brought about by my experiences with death. But now, after the completion of my book and years of work on myself and my psyche, those same shackles of trauma, fear, and uncertainty didn't weigh me down anymore. I no longer had to swim through the darkness of my past in order to gain insights and self-knowledge. I can now look upward, free and unburdened. This power, this value I alluded to earlier that comes from the examination of oneself is not one which can be taught or described accurately. To truly be understood, it must be felt. It must be experienced. For me, the best way I can put it is that it is a sort of strength, an empowerment, a superpower which helps provide you with a sense of stability and control in this chaotic world. And it allows you to go about your life, your relationships, your career, and everything in between a little more stress-free. And with that, I leave you until next time.